Hey everyone, picture this. A young comic artist steps into the abandoned Guang Lim complex, a place where people vanish without a trace. There, he meets a strange caretaker. Or is it really the caretaker? Jung Ji-woo, a young Webtoon artist, visits an old building rumored to be haunted by supernatural forces and missing residents. The moment he steps inside, he's hit with an eerie vibe. Soon he meets the building's caretaker and decides to interview him. Ji-woo explains he's there to dig into the creepy stories tied to this place. The old man smirks and reveals that the building was once an orphanage that burned down years ago. The adults fled, leaving kids to perish in the flames. Ever since, people have heard strange sounds, children's cries and laughter. Then, the caretaker shares a story about a writer who lived here and encountered those noises. Right after moving in, the writer noticed weird things. His laptop, which he used for work, started acting on its own, opening and closing by itself. The next day, he went to a pharmacy to grab some headache pills. When he got back, he heard children's laughter. Searching the rooms, he found a kid's shoe. Suddenly, a small boy knocked his laptop to the floor and vanished. The writer went to the caretaker to check the security cameras, but oddly, there was no footage of a kid running into the hallway. Frustrated, he visited the downstairs neighbors to complain about the constant sound of kids' footsteps disrupting his work. There, he spotted the same kind of shoe he'd found in his apartment. He gathered all the shoes, tossed them into a trash bag, and threw them out. That night, a strange noise woke him. Following the sound, he found the same trash bag full of kids' shoes back in his room. Then, the noise came from the hallway. He peeked through the door's peephole and saw children pointing at the ceiling. Suddenly, a terrifying kid appeared, startling the writer. He fell to the floor surrounded by scattered children's shoes. Looking up, he was horrified to see burned kids on the ceiling, lunging at him. After that, no one ever saw the writer again. The caretaker moves on to another chilling tale, this time about a young woman who lived in the building. She worked at a nearby pharmacy and seemed to be in love with a man who had a wife and child. One day, he showed up at her place, soaking wet and distraught, saying his wife had found out about their affair. The woman was thrilled. Now they wouldn't have to hide, and he could leave his wife. He begged to stay at her place for a while, pleading with her not to tell anyone where he was. The next day, police showed up at her workplace and questioned her. Turns out, the man had killed his wife and child. She rushed home, started packing, and hid his blood-stained clothes. She urged him to flee far away so no one could find them, but he just kept repeating that she shouldn't tell anyone where he was. His words grew stranger, and she sensed something was off. Then, the doorbell rang. She saw her boyfriend standing outside. Confused, she opened the door and told him about the stranger in her shower. He grabbed a hammer and slowly approached the bathroom. Then, he turned to her and repeated that he'd asked her not to tell anyone where he was. The room filled with blood. A stranger appeared behind her, and she vanished. After another creepy story, Ji-woo goes to interview the realtor who rented the apartment to the writer and once lived in the building himself. The realtor is terrified and has been sleeping in his office for ages. He wasn't the most honest guy and, to put it mildly, had quirks, like treating a doll as his wife. Every evening, he'd come home, sit with the doll for dinner, and talk about his day. One night, he heard an odd sound from the sink. The next day, he called a plumber to clear it, and they found women's hair, which shocked him since he lived alone. Assuming it was left by previous tenants, he headed to work. There, his assistant told him the building once housed a cult that worshipped a terrifying entity. Back home, he packed the doll for repairs, but then the sink made that strange noise again. When he turned around, the doll was gone. He found it in the bathroom, panicked, and locked himself in a room. But the sinister doll with its creepy smile found him anyway. Ji-woo questions the realtor about the cult, but the man just acts like he's losing his mind. Later, Ji-woo meets with a client who loves his stories but says the comic is too short. The client asks for more stories to get the comic published, promising Ji-woo fame and fortune. Despite his girlfriend Da-hee begging him to take a break, Ji-woo returns to Guang Lim and pleads with the caretaker for more tales. This time, the old man tells him about a young student who was expelled from an elite school abroad and returned home. Afraid to admit his failure to his parents, the student went to stay with a childhood friend. The friend didn't mind him crashing for a few weeks, but the apartment was filthy. The friend looked sick, and the food in the house was spoiled. With no other options, the student stayed. The next day, while his friend was out, he opened the fridge and found only expired food. Then he noticed mold spreading across the apartment. He decided to clean up and entered a locked room where he saw a portrait of his friend's parents. Later, the friend returned, saw the cleaned apartment and the portrait, and flipped out. He rambled about how his parents let the student stay and he'd betrayed them. The student contacted another friend to crash at their place. As he prepared to leave, he noticed the mold had returned and his friend's illness had worsened. Suddenly, hands reached out from the family portrait and grabbed him. His childhood friend locked the door while the student desperately called for help. Now, Ji-woo presses the caretaker about the cult that once operated in the building. The old man tells him to visit apartment 1504 to uncover the truth about what happened here. Meanwhile, Da-hee listens to Ji-woo's recordings and decides to find him. She heads to Guang Lim. At the same time, Ji-woo enters apartment 1504 and encounters a terrifying stranger rapidly approaching him. Ji-woo manages to hide in a closet and then reaches the apartment. There, he finds a tape where the old man confesses he's not the caretaker, just another victim. Turns out the old man came to Guang Lim to steal a stash of money hidden by the cult in a safe. With his partner, the stranger now chasing Ji-woo, he broke into the apartment. They found the decomposing body of the cult leader with a key to the safe tucked in his mouth. They got the money, but the apartment suddenly turned sinister. The old man vanished, and when his partner saw the cult leader's corpse come to life, he grabbed the cash and ran to their car, which wouldn't start. Then the old man reappeared and got into the car. The partner was relieved, thinking they'd pulled it off, until he realized it wasn't his friend. It was the cult leader in his form. Ji-woo stands before the same dark closet where the old man disappeared. The cult leader appears, and Ji-woo hides in a panic. Soon the caretaker shows up, transforms into Ji-woo, and leaves, trapping the real Ji-woo inside. Later, Da-hee arrives at Guang Lim. A man approaches her, now seemingly the new caretaker. She instantly senses he's not her Ji-woo. So, this movie is a total treat for horror fans. I loved it, and here's why. 5 unique stories keep you on edge till the very end, each with its own brand of terror, from ghosts to psychological twists. The atmosphere of the abandoned Guang Lim is bone-chilling, and the finale ties everything into one grim picture. It's not just jump scares, it's deep, stylish Korean horror that makes you think. If you love a good scare, you've got to watch this. What do you think of horror anthologies like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more recaps. Catch you next time.